Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Javier Llerena. He is a leadership development coach, podcast host, and founder of Reinvent Consulting. Welcome to the show, Javier.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how one can unleash their leadership potential. As a leadership development coach, we learned that all this from you, Javier. But first, let's understand a bit about your journey so that people learn directly from your journey itself.
Absolutely. I think we all are shaped to be leaders. My journey in the corporate world started with working for Oracle, and I think Oracle. When I think about Oracle, I think it's one of the best universities to develop leaders. I think they have a very strong um, base to create those leaders. So I started in the corporate world. I moved from direct marketing all the way to my last corporate position was a managing director for a company based out of England that decided to open a shop here in the United States. But from there, I started getting a lot of messages from CEOs and board members of the companies that I work for, and they were saying that I wasn't a pure chief revenue officer as they wanted me to. They were saying that I was more of a therapist, a psychologist, and perhaps I should be a coach. And that's
Right.
how I start becoming curious about what is coaching, how can coaching develop leaders, and that's how my journey started with what I do now.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So, Javier, I wanted to understand you talked about Oracle being a very good base for, that creates a base for leading, in terms of leadership skill. And at the same time, you see so many companies, they are facing leadership crisis, the great resignation, the quiet quitting very much on. So, in that backdrop, what can companies do and learn from companies that you talked about, who have that created that base? What is it that other companies are lacking so that, they can create that base to create good leaders for themselves as well as for others, where some of these employees will go in future?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. When I reflect back and say, okay, what is the things that Oracle and on other successful companies are doing in regards to develop leaders? I think there is what I call first is the self exploration of the individual. I think a lot of leaders, I don't want to call them leaders, but managers or supervisors tend to think that if I tell people what to do, if I structure them to do the tasks they need to do, if I say, hey, here's my vision, follow the vision, I become a leader. And I think you need to do a lot of internal retrospective of who you are as an individual and really do a lot of inquiry in regards to your strengths, right? The strengths of the individual, and really think about how you can apply those to the aspirations that you have. I think Oracle really developed individuals to be very self-aware of those, and then put those into practice as well. Obviously, things have changed in the corporate spectrum in regards to how we lead. Right now, there is what I call the well-being approach, where leaders are realizing that a lot of people are getting burned out. A lot of people are calling sick, saying, I need a mental health day. So that's something to think about as a leader, that the old ways of leading are changing, that we need to be very aware of emotional intelligence, well-being, psychological safety, non-aggressive communication, right? Really empower the employee, really have them collaborate. So I think all those skills, along with your self awareness of your strengths, can make that leader. So I think companies need to, I know companies out there, especially from a startup perspective, are thinking about revenue, right? They're what I call in that survival mode, because we need to generate revenue in order to get our second, third, fourth round of investment. But you got to think about, hey, what if I develop the leaders way at the beginning and really flourish with that and really build a team that grows along with the growing of the company and the objectives of the company? Then I'm going to become a very solid company. So I think Oracle thinks of really implements that, and I think they're really putting an ear out there and listening to what is happening. I think they're great in well-being approaches, psychological safety to lead to innovation, creativity. So I think that's one of the key components. I guess there are many that companies like Oracle are doing to build leaders.
Right, Javier. Now, one of a very important work of a leader is to boost team's performance. And also we are talking right now about how one can also do justice to themselves, unleash their own full potential. Which comes first for a leader? Especially if you are a middle level management person, how do you calibrate both these things? Can you do it together at the same time, or your own growth comes first and then you look at the team's performance, or you look at the team's performance first and then think whether you should do something, whether you have the time? How does that work?
Yes, and that reminds me, what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg, right?
Right, right, right.
So I think, right, I always tell that there's three questions that I ask leaders in regards to performance, right? Because we all want to perform, right? Everybody who's a middle manager wants to perform at the best. So I always ask them, where you get your energy. The majority of the people say, well, I get my energy by working for my family. I get my energy because I want to get a bigger house. I get my energy because I want to get promoted. I say, no, no, no. Where do you get your energy from? And what I mean by energy is what is refueling you to be optimal. Is it a sleep? Is it nutrition?
Right.
Is it meditating? Is it praying? Is it being more mindful? Is it letting go of negative self-talk? What are the elements that help you be optimal? That's number one. Number two, what is your purpose? Right? Is your purpose to serve others so they can become great as well? Is your purpose to evangelize companies in regards to your solution or your product? Is your purpose to create an environment of collaboration? What is your purpose, right? Because once we connect with purpose, we motivate ourselves to get to a higher place. And the other one is, are you doing things with love? And this might sound cliche, and I don't mean by romantic love. What I mean is love, and love what you're doing. I love what I do every day. I love it. There's nothing more satisfactory than the work that I do, because I love what I do, because I connect with my purpose, because I connect with my energy. And I think once we determine those, then we are ready to perform in our highest level. And then we can carry on with our groups to really coach them and help them with those three elements. Very basic: energy, purpose, love, right? And if you don't have those, if you don't optimize your energy or are aware where you get your energy, then what's going to happen is you most likely going to be burnt out. Most likely you're going to have negative thoughts. Most likely you're going to make the wrong decisions. Most likely you're going to find the easy way out because everything is an obstacle, everything is a problem, the environment is too hard. And then if there is no purpose, then you just going in default mode. You're just going navigating instead of thriving, right? And then if you don't do things with love, then you're always waiting for either get recognized, or you're waiting for that pat at the back, or you're waiting for people to do things for you if I do things for you. So that's the three elements that I tell people. Hey, you want to elevate your team performance, you start with those three basic things with you.
Right, Javier. You talked about purpose. Let's talk about purpose versus profit. If I am a middle level manager, that bosses are talking about, profit. They're also talking about purpose, but one can see whether they are what they are actually meaning. How
Hmm.
do I then, when I start thinking of the purpose in the real sense, and which a lot of especially young people are looking at nowadays, how do I get that conviction of telling the team that let's look at the purpose? Okay, okay, but actually it is all about profit. Where do I get that conviction? Now the easy thing will be, why don't you change the company? But it is not so easy. How do I, the dilemma maximum lies in the middle level, leadership.
Yes.
How do I then calibrate the truth? It's a fact, a lot of people talk about something else, big vision, big words, but ultimately they look at the bottom lines, and that is the big fact of life. So as a middle level manager, how do I keep my purpose, which is a very noble one, with that of a with that of the objectives that the senior management is telling, because I have to get the same thing done from my team, because many times it can become a dilemma for especially very young people.
Absolutely, and that's a great. You said a really good question, and I'm gonna give you. I like to give simple answers for people to think, and
Right.
I'm gonna use the analogy of Starbucks. Right,
Yeah.
Starbucks, yeah, they're there to sell you coffee, right, and maybe to upgrade the sale and say, hey, would you like a pastry? Would you like to upgrade? They upsell you, not a problem. But when you see the employees of Starbucks, they're doing it with purpose, because their purpose there is not to sell you more coffee, to sell you pastry, or keep you there so you can order a second time. Their purpose is to make that experience so pleasant, so personal, that that person is going to come back again. That person is going to be less resistant to upgrade. So the way they smile at you, the way they talk to you, the way they make eye contact, the way they call your name, the way they say thank you for coming, that is with purpose. They're using that purpose of our purpose is to provide the best experience ever to that customer, right? The profits come. Absolutely, they come, right? So the same thing is when I was in sales, hey, you can deliver a proposal. You can deliver, you can do your job, or you can go two steps higher, right? And deliver the best experience or delight the customer. That is going to increase your profit, guarantee, because I'm connecting with purpose. I tell people, I'm not selling you software. I'm solving a major problem for your clients that is going to return profits to you. That is my purpose. My purpose is to elevate the profitability of your company, the profitability of their companies. And that's why I'm sending you this solution of software, right? It's not a return on your investment. Is I'm giving you my purpose to help other companies that will help other companies. So I think when we get in touch with our purpose, we see profitability moving forward. So the same thing with my clients. When I facilitate, when I do coaching for executives, I'm connecting with my purpose, and my profitability grows because they see the passion. They see, hey, this is what Javier is doing. He's connecting with the purpose. The purpose is elevating me so I can become a better executive and increase my whatever they want to increase. They want to increase their well-being. They want to increase their team performance. They want to increase their purpose. And that is increasing their revenue, right? So when you connect with purpose, profitability will increase, right? So that's why I put that example of Starbucks, because I always pay attention to them. And I say, oh my goodness. Because if you go to Starbucks and you get a regular type of service where there's no smile, there is no, hey, would you like to this? Would you like that? How's your day going? You don't get nothing like that. I guarantee you, your profits will plummet. I don't care how hard you're going to try to sell coffee, your profits will plummet. So I think when we connect with purpose, and that connects with, hey, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, profits elevate. But you touch on a good point. How can we get to that point? How can we get to think that my value that I'm adding, my purpose that I'm adding is going to increase my profit. That is the mindset. We need to change the mindset. We need to shift from a negative way of thinking. We need to change from a defensive way or perhaps defending way of thinking to a more positive, creative possibilities, creativity, right? Faith that things will come along.
Right, right, Javier. Now let's talk about you talk about cultivating mental fitness. Now, leaders, they are supposed to make sure that everyone else, is in a very good position, that he is not toxic, that he is not bringing negativity into the team. Rather than, he is there to help others' lives make easy for them by being, mentally sound, mentally in good shape and size. Why do you talk about mental fitness for, leaders? Shouldn't that be understood? And especially, many a times when you say mental fitness, many a times people are fired and they say, listen man, you got to be mentally tough. So does mental fitness mean mental toughness? And what does mental toughness or fitness mean in today's time, when at the same time we are talking about, human leadership, conscious leadership, heart filled leadership? Help us understand. Means this can confuse a lot
Yes,
of people. Strong leadership. What sort of leader should I be, especially when I'm a middle level manager?
absolutely, absolutely. And what I mean by mental fitness, I mean obviously there's a lot of definition. My definition of mental fitness is really uh, have the ability to control your thoughts, right? Because a lot of people think their thoughts is what it is, right? Or they create this mental reality, I call it, right? We have the ability to create a mental reality. I say it's more powerful than virtual reality, right? And what I mean by that is mental reality is it comes from our beliefs, it comes from our values, or how we see the world, right? We all see the world in a different way. And there is people, for example, I remember when I was growing up, they will tell me about countries that I never been to, but the story created these beliefs about that country, and then I always think that that country had this, and that until you create this mental reality, and when you go to that country, like, oh my god, I've been lying to myself. So that's mental fitness. Mental fitness is realizing, is it really true what I'm telling myself? Are those thoughts that are creating negativity in my life? Are those thoughts that are creating positivity in my life? Right? Really control that in your mind, right? I will get into pressure and being tough in a minute. So mental fitness is really thinking about, is this thought, right, that is creating an emotion and is going to create an action, adding what I call unnecessary stress, right? Unnecessary stress, right? Is it taking a sleep away from me? Is it taking believing in myself? Is it adding that imposter syndrome, right? So mental fitness is having the ability to be mindful and recognizing that my thoughts are interfering with my overall goal. My thoughts are creating a mental reality that is not true at all. And I give you an example, right? You can walk into your workplace and you can see your team, and somebody gives you a look. Next thing you know, because of your beliefs and your values, you're thinking that person, oh, that person is looking at me that way because I did this, I sent that email. And that creates a narrative, that creates a mental reality that is not true. Perhaps that person give you that look in a serious way because they're having a bad day, right? But you interpret that, right? And that leads to a mental reality, and that leads into an action that is going to be a negative one. So having the ability to really control your mind and your thoughts, and really think about, hey, I want to cultivate thoughts that lead me to a more positive stage. I want to cultivate thoughts that lead me into creativity and productivity. I'm not saying to ignore, because we always going to have a negative thought coming our way. I'm not saying to ignore that, but have the ability to be agile and move very quickly from a negative way of thinking to a positive. That's mental fitness right there. Now I'm going to talk about pressure. Pressure, the way I see pressure, I said, look at Olympians or look at professional athletes. The other day, I was watching this Olympian that won the gold medal. And that Olympian had no idea that he won the gold medal until they announced the results. And the reason why is when we under pressure, most likely we're going to think about the
Right.
outcome instead of the process, right?
Right.
When you under pressure, just think about the steps that you're taking to get there, one step at a time, right? I always tell people, if you run a marathon or you run a 5K, 10K, don't care what race you're running, and you're thinking about the finish line, oh my goodness, that race is going to be a long one, a hard one, a painful one. But if we're thinking, hey, 1 kilometer at a time, 1 mile at a time, let's enjoy the process. Let's take care of my breathing. Let's take care of my steps. Let's keep moving forward. That pressure becomes less. It becomes a good pressure, not a bad pressure. But if we're thinking about the sales, oh, I gotta sell 4 million, and I haven't sold. I'm 2 million. How am I gonna get to 4? We're thinking about the outcome instead of thinking about what can I do today? What are the steps that I need to take in order to be successful to reach my quota? What are the things that I need to do? And then that's when we check the mental fitness. What is my stage right now? What am I telling myself that is sabotaging me to achieve what I want to achieve?
Right, right. Wonderful, Javier. Now, in terms of suppose a leader, and he'll think, okay, I'm a good person, I'm a good leader. That's what, because people around me, some neutral people, so-called neutral people, and obviously some are yes men and sycophants also. They say what a great leader you are. Sometimes you also like these things. So here you think you have done a great job. Everyone, because you are the boss, people will say yes to everything. How do I know whether my efforts are succeeding? Is there a way to measure my leadership success, my empowerment efforts and
Yes,
everything? Because I really want to make that change and not just do some cosmetic change.
absolutely. And I think that comes to mind what I call and what I teach in the workshops about what I call appreciative feedback, right? And appreciative feedback is not me giving feedback to you, but it's you also providing feedback to me, right? Because that's very valuable to give feedback. And then we also need to talk about psychological safety. If I don't have the proper psychological safety in my team, right? I remember when I was managing teams, there was one question that I asked at the beginning of my meetings every Friday. I say, guys, I'm going to ask you one question. I want you to tell me, the things that bothers you about me, the things that are that you don't really like about me, that they're preventing you. And I want you to be really honest, because there's no retaliation here, but I need to know, because we need to build that trust. And you won't believe the amount of people that will say, Javier, I hate it when you schedule last minute meetings. I hate it when you ask for this report knowing that I needed to put it together and it's going to take me 3 hours, and I'm going to make mistakes. So that made me realize, oh, I got to change some things here. And what made it as well is very strong ties with my team, because they have the ability to give me what I call appreciative feedback. It's not nothing to do about you. What has to do is the way that you do things. And when you hear that, you're like, oh, I totally get it. I'm gonna be more respectful next time to schedule meetings at the last minute. I'm gonna be more mindful about my requests and really put realistic deadlines to my employees. So what happened when I did that? When I started doing that, my productivity of my team increased tremendously, because people felt they were open and they felt safe and they felt they can go ahead and tell me that type of feedback to make me a better leader. So they were not sugarcoating like they were doing before. So that's something to think about. And also, it opened the door for me to provide appreciative feedback to them and say, listen, I really appreciate this, and that, what you're doing. But what about if we modify that to do that? Because I know you can do it. You have the strength, you have the abilities, you have done it in the past. So it became a more, not a personal approach. It was more of, hey, we can build based on psychological safety, where we are very open. We have a direct, open communication to each other.
Wonderful. There is so much to learn from you, Javier, and I'm sure a lot of people can learn from not just this episode, but a lot of episodes that you do. You are the podcast host of Positive Leadership Academy. Tell us a bit about your podcast.
Yes. So, Positive Leadership Academy podcast, what we do is we interview leaders, different topics. For example, we had our latest episode was about influential leadership and how to be an influence leader to other and really influence them for greatness. We have episodes that we talk about, hey, how to be a green manager. And you might ask, what is a green manager? It's really thinking about the environment and really bringing the environment to your group so they become more conscious about, hey, saving the environment. We talk about mental fitness as well. We talk about different styles on leadership. We talk about, hey, how to really reinvent your career if you want to get into sales or you can get into management when you're in your midlife, right? You're in your 40s, your 50s, and how you can apply some of the skills that you have from past jobs. So we really talk about in a positive way about leading others, right? So positive leadership is a concept, but it really touched different areas of leadership. So I bring guests to talk about that type of leadership because we believe that we can change the world. I always tell mid-level managers, C levels, you have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to really elevate your team because the more you elevate your team, it's gonna impact in their household. Their household is gonna impact communities, and the communities are gonna make a better place to live. So it's something to think about. That's our responsibilities as leaders.
Absolutely. There is much to learn, as I said, from you, and a lot of people who would like to learn from you, learn about reinvent consulting, be your client. What is the best way for them to do so?
Yes, the best way to reach me, I am in LinkedIn, Javier Llerena. You can reach out to me and go ahead and let's connect, let's talk. Obviously, Positive Leadership Academy podcast. I love for people to get a lot of value out of it. So please listen to and subscribe. And also, I am very active on Instagram. They can reach out to me, Mr. Javier Llerena, all together in Instagram. And I have a lot of nuggets there for people to develop their leadership skill to a further step to greatness, and at the same time to enjoy the ride. I think we need to enjoy the ride. Life is too short, so let's go. No pressure, no diamonds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.